Welcome everyone to vlog number 15A of the Ready Persona 1 campaign. Woohoo!
That was fun.
A lot of
Cool.
excitement there.
Yeah.
We got a lot of things wrapped up in a single little episode, and I think I liked it.
You did a lot. Yeah. It was cool just to see how Frankie was doing, obviously, just check in on things. It was nice to revisit the library again. I love that little thing. As I said, I'm not sure who else is going to do that, but I'm very
Yeah, it
pleased.
felt very natural for Frankie to be like, oh my gosh, Sam is probably in the library. I need his help.
Mhm.
Let's see.
Daddy.
I do dads. Where are my dads? They're probably in the library. Or maybe there's a book in the library. So it was like very natural for him to like, let's just go back and check real quick and get some food.
I am excited.
That was the important thing.
Yes, I am excited for your campaign's two dads, Black Powder and Sam, to meet this campaign's dad, which is Gabe. Although the only reason they call him dad is because he pays for everything.
Yeah.
That's really the only reason, not
Yeah,
necessarily because
we didn't really have that.
He's our glucose guardian.
Okay.
Um
I love that glucose guardian. Nice.
was real
Yeah,
The glucose I got it. Glucose guardian. It's cute. Sure,
I like Glucose Guardian. It's nice to it was really nice to see some of the similarities that Forrest had with Frankie. I like that a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot more in common than I thought, actually. That was really interesting.
Me too. I mean, I knew about some of the things coming into it, but I don't want to say like your character is like complete, because I always believe that characters always grow, they always change, they always adapt. But like your character feels like a character that has been through an arc that's similar to mine, and I have questions on whether I want to go down that same arc or not. And well, that's more like a player thing for me. Of like, do I want to do that? But
every character is different, even though they're similar. It was really interesting because it seems like Perez really takes a lot on himself.
Yeah.
Frankie to an extent did something similar, but I think Frankie, maybe because of the other characters and how he interacted with his group, he was checked immediately by a lot of different people, right? Like he immediately wanted to protect Tori, and Tori was like, back off. And it was like, it was this existential thing that he was having because it was like a program issue that it was like, goes against who I am. But then he had this little moment where it's like, I don't know who I am anymore, and I got to figure myself out. And
yeah, that's exactly what Forrest is going through.
Yeah.
I don't know who I am anymore.
And you just kind of figure it out for your character. I mean, it's interesting. Yeah, and I think because of where Frankie ended up, he kind of saw that, like, don't take it on you. Like, don't why carry that weight? Doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I think it's more rooted very deeply in Forrest's character, as one of their defining traits is that they care about everyone and everything, and they aren't necessarily strictly pacifists. There are instances where they will fight.
Yeah.
But conflict is something they want to avoid beyond all things. And like I said, wanted to make everybody happy, literally, if they could.
Yeah, that's definitely something they're different, because Frankie does come from a world where fighting is a thing, killing happens.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's very, very different, right? The first thing that Frankie wants to do is kind of bash it in.
I noticed. Forrest did not like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think Forrest kind of latched onto the fact, like, oh, you're created. You don't feel like you have authority over yourself. You're like, your story is already written, so you don't feel like you can change.
And it's an extra layer too. Like for Frankie, he was created in his story, but his story was also created for him. So it's like an inception of creation for him, where he's like, I can control what I can, and what I can't, it is what it is. If there's in me to just want to bash things, then I'm just gonna bash things. But
Mhm.
hey, so be it.
Yeah. So you've kind of surrendered to your fate, so to say.
In a way, I think Frankie certainly has accepted a lot more. He went through a time where he didn't know what to do with that. And I think he reached a point where he did accept, like, he had to come to terms with everything, his different memories. Like, he just had to live with the card that he was given. So, and I think he's certainly at peace, if you will, with all of that.
It doesn't. It's not a conflict anymore. It's more
Mhm.
like this is what I am, and it's not going to control me any longer.
Yeah.
Right.
Ironically, nothing will control me, or everything else will control me because I don't have control over myself. Where was I going with that thought? Well, I know like our origins are similar but very very different.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I I have not watched your campaign.
Yeah.
I mean to. I keep meaning to. I always am like, I'm too busy today. I need a four full hours to watch an entire episode. And it's just I want to see that dynamic now. Like before, it was just like I should probably watch it because I'm going to interact with them. Now I just want to see your party dynamics, and I mean,
Yeah,
They're
our
part.
party dynamic was very interesting. For
I heard it
sure.
started off a little rocky, but then it kind of like really got really good.
It's it's those moments of tragedy that brought the group together. Um, but yeah, and it was like there's a lot of stress. There's a
Mhm.
lot of stress that kind of formed the group. Because initially, yeah, we were like at each other's throats. We were like, everyone with their guns out, like, who are you? Who are you? Who are you?
Yeah. Yeah. I'd like to commend Alex on today's session because I did like that as a player, you um, had Frankie take a back seat and allowed Forrest like have the moments to shine, especially at the end with the basilisk. Uh, because that's really like the purpose of these crossovers. It's not so much for us to have the old characters come over and like take over the story. It's how can these characters from the previous campaign support and elevate the current character storyline, and I think that Alex and Frankie did that very well today.
I was surprised. I kind of expected you. I've heard that you were one of the. I I don't want to sound rude, like you're the better one or whatever, but like all of you, I'm sure, are very good at role playing.
Everyone's great. Everyone's
The
great.
I've
better
heard
one.
that you are one of the better role players, and everyone is great. We're all included. Like everybody's good and great, but I've heard you're better.
He's one of the more experienced. Let's say that
Experience.
one
We'll
more
say that.
experienced
That's a good way of
players.
putting it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised that you did not take initiative in some of the scenes, and
Um,
that does speak to your experience. I think. Were there times where you felt like you wanted to, but then didn't?
well, right. I think that as a player, right, as a player, we love to play. We love to role play. Of course, there are moments where I'm just like, oh my God, Frankie could come in and just jump in and do this and do that. Because at the same time, my mind is running with all kinds of ideas for like a potential scene. But at the same time, to the purpose of this session is to really, again, catapult your character through your campaign. And so I can't just come in with Frankie and be like, hey, I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to do this. It's react. I was more listening and reacting rather than trying to lead a scene. I mean, there were moments where I was like, let's go to I want to go to the library.
Yeah.
I want to take you
Yeah.
there, and that's where I kind of led some of that there. But then the rest was like, all right, I'm listening to you. You tell me if I should come into the scene or not.
Yeah.
And that's how I approached it.
That's where I feel like we as role players differ. I do that before I start role playing. Like I think about like all the scenes I can have. I think about all the things that could happen. But once I start role playing, I step into a character and I try to emulate that character in its entirety. So I don't necessarily think about like what scene should Forrest be in? What scene should Yellow put some comedy into the scene or something? I think more along the lines of like, I am Forrest. What would Forrest do in this situation? And if it's like sit back and stutter, then that's what it is. And if it's like, I think they would try to put on a face and act, that's what it is. And I feel like it's okay, but sometimes I'm not too sure.
Yeah.
It's for me, it's a balance. You have to, because I've also GM'd quite a bit, so it's a constant balance of being in character, but also having an out of game mindset to read the room, right? To read what's happening in a scene so that you can also improv accordingly. At least for me, that's how I approach it. It's trying to be, and I'm still learning how to do it. It's not like it's still practice. It's really listening. Really, that's the key.
Yeah. I gotta lie with you there.
I enjoy. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Ethan.
No, I messed up. I'm correcting myself in my head.
I enjoyed the short scene between Forrest and Jim with the harmonica because I really liked. It was probably kind of obvious, but I definitely was leading that conversation to a specific point that was meant to remind you of your grandfather. At the same time, I don't know if you caught this, Ethan, but I was also trying to sort of emulate um, the possible feelings Forrest has about Yellow because Jim was talking about his father and how Jim himself was really quiet versus his father, who is the confident one and the one that he sees as this superhero kind of that can do a lot of things that he feels like he can't or at least doesn't have the nerve to. I was sort of like channeling the difference between Forrest and Yellow a little bit with that. But it was subtle, hopefully. But that was like one of go ahead.
It was. I didn't notice it.
Yeah.
I did not see that was your intention.
That was what I was thinking in terms of why I had Jim bring that up. And I like this because I didn't really have Jim talk too much about his dad that much during the campaign. So it's really cool to be able to dig a little bit deeper in his backstory and his relationship with his father and where the harmonica, because the harmonica, I think I did bring up him using the harmonica at the campaign at some point. So it was really cool to be able to, like I said, add more about Jim within this story today.
Okay.
What do you think was your favorite part of today's session, Ethan?
It's always difficult when we're talking about what's my favorite part of the role play. It's like the role play in general is just my
Sure.
favorite part. I they all were. I felt like all those scenes were good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if I can answer that. I really do like the dynamic that you and what's the creator husband? What is his name?
Victor.
Victor. Thank you.
Victor.
Like the dynamic of you and Victor had when you were still in scenes with Forrest. I feel like sometimes when I get put into scenes with characters I don't know, sometimes I kind of stumble and I forget some of the things that I should remember, like my character's habits or how I think they should respond. I fall out of character a little bit. But it just felt so natural, even with this strange dragon in your food storage.
Yeah.
You're just very natural with your role play, and it was lovely.
Park is a great role play partner.
Yeah, it's no secret. I don't think
He is really, really good. Great at improving and creating scenes that just kind of pop and just are really, really fun. I really loved our telepathic conversation. That was kind of cool, just in the fact that he doesn't really get a chance to really do a lot of that.
Yes.
And so to meet someone who has very similar abilities was like,
Yeah.
oh, cool. Like,
Especially in this world, because the psionics are all pretty much in your world.
right.
And so meeting another person who happens to also be psionic, although in his terminology it's a mentalist,
Mhm.
was a really cool like opportunity, since I feel like this is something I haven't had in quite a while. I haven't been able to experience in quite a while.
Yeah.
Um, I
And
also
just,
go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
and I was just gonna say, and for us to like be very open and trusting with Frankie was pretty cool. It's like we just met, and you're like, oh, hey, by the way, but it's like that like immediate bond you when you click with someone, you just like I barely know you, but it feels like I've known you for a long time.
I don't know if that was partially like me clicking well with you, or if that was just more of a thing of like me wanting to push along the scene. I feel I want to say it was me clicking well with you. Hopefully it is, but I don't know. Um, take it as you will.
Yeah, that's fine.
What was I going to say? Wow. Yeah, that's right. I feel definitely if this happened a lot earlier in our campaign, you would not have seen Forest at all. They would have been extremely reserved. Very, a very different person.
Hmm.
And I'm not sure entirely if, well, I wasn't sure when I went in if I was going to keep that. I actually had a lot of things planned for that scenario in my head. But then when I entered the scene, it was just like, you know what? This is weird. It's been weird for a long time. I'm gonna try to have a little fun. And then I play the music and it didn't work out, but then it just happened. And I'm gushing at this point. I'm gushing. Sorry.
It's okay. I loved also the return of Redcap. That was just so epic. I mean, he's such an epic character.
Redcap was a loose end, because I know that at the end of the last campaign, the mention was they never saw Redcap again, at least for now. And
Mhm.
so I felt like I have to figure out what his
Yeah.
fate was. And I thought, okay, since we're revisiting Frankie's world again, or actually Black
Black
Powder's world,
Powders.
I have to make him show up. And I don't know, I think it's fitting for him to be partially frozen now,
Yeah.
partially. I thought about also having his. I did think about having his mouth petrified, because that's probably what most of the characters would want. But for entertainment purposes, I think it was still funnier if he could still speak, which is why I
Absolutely.
didn't. So I didn't do that.
Absolutely.
So he's now just a talking head,
It's
basically.
perfect. Of course, my
I
character want him to shut up,
I
but it's funny if he doesn't. Yes.
I don't know
Yes.
if either of you have seen the show Charmed. Um, okay, so then Alex probably remembers there's this one part in Charmed where Piper can freeze people, and there's this one episode where she freezes somebody, but then she's like, "Can I unfreeze
Unfreeze.
parts of people?" And she unfroze only the person's head, and it was like hilarious. Like
Yes.
it was so
Yes.
hilarious because they were trying to like interrogate this person for information, and she's like, "Why don't I just unfreeze his head, and then we can ask him questions and threaten like to not, save him if he doesn't cooperate." And I was like, oh, I have to do this, but
Yeah,
because
it's
that would be
brilliant.
so fitting for Redcap.
It's brilliant. It was a brilliant move because, of course, yeah, my character is like, shut him up. But no, like,
No.
don't do it. It's,
And I'm excited to see how Thistle / Black Powder will react to a
I
here.
know. Here we go.
I mean, knowing Black Powder, like his character will probably just want to decapitate
Just
him and be
completely.
done with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But hopefully there'll be some entertainment value before
Black
that
Powder
happens.
has come a long way as well. So this will be
Yeah.
really, really funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you handled that scene really well. That was really interesting because going into it, not ending up in combat, like how do you talk your way out of that scene? That was pretty cool.
and I thought it was still pretty exciting and pretty epic
Yeah.
and crazy entertaining. Than if you all got into combat and just started smashing things. I felt like this was more interesting, and I mean, it's Redcap. He really was never meant to be a villain that you could take seriously.
Yeah.
He's not really somebody that you should
No.
worry too much about. So I'm like, let him play.
But he's
around.
riding a basilisk. Like
Yeah.
no one wanted to come top deck. Everyone was like, I'm not going up there. You
Yeah.
go.
Right. Exactly. It was a great way for him to come back, and
Mhm.
yeah. The last thing I will ask before we close is there anything in a particular that you both are looking forward to the most when all of us are together?
Chaos.
The chaos. You're looking forward to the chaos. Okay.
Having 9 people in the same room, I'm sure will be.
I
fun.
want to
Or
see
wait,
what
it's-
everyone
isn't it?
transforms into.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Oh,
really
yeah, we
curious
haven't
to
told you yet.
know.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know.
I
Yeah.
did ask each individual, our Ready Persona 1 player, what animal they would turn into in Star Wars World. So I do know that.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see that.
I want to see all of that.
Yeah.
And also how Star handles it, because Star is like in charge. So
Yeah.
I have a feeling me and Star are going to clash heads.
Just
well,
I'm not saying that you have to do this, Ethan, but just FYI, when we first went to Star's World, every single player dressed up, not fully, but like Black Powder turned to a bear, so they wore like a pajamas that had the teddy bear, like the bear like hood on. So
I don't know where I could find something like that.
I had my
For that
horns.
Alex
specific
had horns.
animal? Yeah, for like my Halloween episode, I had the horns, I had like the costume, but I don't think I have an animal thing for the thing that I
it's
picked
okay.
out.
It's
I
okay.
might be able to find something.
If you want to at least dress in the color of the animal, if the animal has a color, you can probably do that.
Sort of.
So, but anyway, something to think about.
Don't want to reveal anything.
Alex, did you answer like what you're looking forward to the most? When
I want to see their animals.
You want to see their animals?
Yeah, I want to see everyone, like
Yeah.
everyone animaled out.
That's it. Screw the characters. Just want to know their animals, right?